Every round of golf has a story, and I'm not talking about the play-by-play you force your buddies to listen to at the 19th hole. How you would have broke 80 if it weren't for all those excuses. You tweaked your back before the round trying to start a weightlifting program at 40 years old. You moved back to the tips to test your game to get ready for tournament golf in 2025. You were distracted trying to record the round with your phone instead of a GoPro so you could put yourself into content creators' shoes. That ridiculous bounce off the cart path that just totally derailed your round. All of those things happened, by the way, but that's not why I failed to break 80 as a scratch golfer. You see, every round has a story. Ups, downs, peaks, and valleys. Successes and setbacks. Understanding each story is the key to writing a better book. And the book is my golf journey that I'm trying to write every single day. However, the takeaways can be harder to find when the story is told linearly. If you're interested and haven't already seen it, you can go back and watch this round as it played out in real time. But in this film room, I'll show you how I use the Tangent app to simplify the complex and see where to focus my attention before the next round of golf. If you want to improve your golf, a post-round review is critical to understand opportunities and where to focus your attention before the next chapter is written. One of the first things I like to review when I'm done playing is the detailed scorecard. In addition to traditional things like fairways, greens, and the number of putts, the detailed scorecard gives you advanced information like strokes gained. I like to start with strokes gained total. It gives you an idea of how you played from hole to hole and how you progressed through the round. For instance, did you start off hot or did you start off poorly? Usually starting off poorly means a bad warm-up or poor prep. What about the middle of the round? Did you have momentum for the closing stretch, potentially rebounding from a slow start, or building on a hot one? And lastly, did you have enough energy to finish at the end? Did you eat enough? Were you hydrated? Did you run out of energy? How's your fitness? Did you keep grinding even if the score was getting away from you? Those are the types of things I like to pay attention to from round to round, and the detailed scorecard gives you that information pretty quickly. You can see in this round that I struggled on some easy holes, made some poor scores, and that was largely because my warm-up wasn't great. I was rushing to get some filming stuff ready, Grant hit traffic on his way to video the round, and we were just scrambling a bit to get everything ready for the first tee. And it led to a squirrely start. I did get it together in the middle, but again at the end you can see that I struggled, and looking back at the round it was pretty obvious why. I was trying to juggle too many things. I was trying to film with my phone for the first time, which ended up being a lot more work than I expected. Between the microphone and the cables, I just wasn't prepared for the hassle, and it was distracting. I was trying to put myself in the shoes of other content creators that use their phone, so that I could understand what they go through, and it was just really clumsy the first time out. I got pretty annoyed and ran out of patience, and it leaked into my game. But for you, it could be a number of things. Maybe it's an email from work that annoys you. Maybe it's a text from your significant other about that thing that you forgot to do. Maybe you're playing with someone you don't gel with, and he's finally getting on your nerves. Or maybe the weather's not great, and your shoes are causing a blister, or whatever it might be. There's a million things that could cause you to be annoyed in the middle of a round and lose concentration. But those are the types of things you want to look out for with strokes gained total. But golf is more than just a total. It's made up of individual shots. And those shots fall into 4 primary skills, being driving, approach, short game, and putting. Tangent automatically divides up your shots into these 4 categories, and the detailed scorecard breaks it down hole by hole. But before we look at specific shots, let's dive into the Tangent Round Report to see how AI Stats analyze our performance. The Round Report starts with the Tangent 4. These are 4 key mistakes that directly impact score. Those are 3 putts, 2 chips, penalties, and recovery shots. Basically, if I would have avoided these items, I could have turned an 80 into a 68. That sounds wild, but it's not far off. Whether it was the penalty on 3, laying up into recovery on 10, or the disaster of chipping and putting on 15, those were low-hanging fruit that cost me real shots and immediately impacted my score. Continuing down the summary, we'll see the strokes gained summary. This data is also shown on the detail scorecard, but summarized nicely here. I lost 7.2 strokes to my handicap reference. That's a ton for me, as it's usually closer to 2 strokes. I was worse than my typical performance in 3 of the 4 categories, and in particular with approach. I put myself in some bad situations. Hitting greens is the fastest way to lower scores, and I missed 61% of my greens due to approach play. Ouch. In fact, I only hit 4 greens compared to my typical of 10 to 12. So we're going to dive into more of that here in a minute, but let's follow down the rabbit hole of the round report before we go to specific moments in the round. The beautiful thing about the round report is it is walking us from the high level to specific details of how we could have played better in this practice round. The next graphic is a detailed view of why my strokes gained approach was so bad. Again, I lost 6.4 strokes in total, but 3.8 of those were due to mistakes in approach game. Mistakes are hitting into penalties, recoveries, or bunkers, and I did a lot of that in this round. My bad shots were bad. I hit 38% of my approach shots into trouble, the biggest bucket being bunkers. But I also had a penalty and some recovery shots. These can often be avoided with better decision making and target selection, but in some cases, ball striking gets you in trouble. The next biggest category was direction. I did alright with distance control, but I missed quite a bit laterally. Don't believe me? Keep scrolling. I missed about the same amount of greens laterally as I did for distance control, 7 shots for both, but the ones I missed laterally led to more trouble. I lost a total of 5 of my 6.4 strokes for lateral misses. Whether it was the blocked 5-wood into the water on 3, or I pulled the 3-wood on 11, the blocked 3-wood into the trees on 15, or the pulled iron into the bunker on 16. You get the point. We missed on both sides, and those shots hurt. The blocked 5-wood on 3 was bad enough to make the coachable moments for this round, scrolling down in the round report. Coachable moments include your worst 3 shots from the round and the biggest opportunities to improve. We can talk to coach here and grab some extra info that the coach will use to help recommend practice. The blocked 3-wood on 15 was a coachable moment as well. It led to a quadruple bogey when I got stuck in the brush and made some more bad decisions. It was an aggressive target to start with that hung out there and never drew back into play. The risk reward probably wasn't there to hit this shot, particularly with how I was swinging, and I paid for it. The next biggest area of struggle was putting at 1.6 strokes lost. Again, the cool thing about the Tangent Round Report is it does all the heavy lifting of aggregating the individual shots so that I can focus on the takeaways. We can tap the putting bar on the plot and select to take me to putting so I can deep dive into what went wrong there. Overall, I lost 1.9 strokes to my reference, but it's pretty simple to see why. I actually gained strokes on short putts. I was neutral on those mid-rangers, but I lost 1.9 shots with my long putts. A lot of times you can walk off the course mad at what just happened at the end of the round. Tangent's round report pulls you out of that funk and guides you to exactly what matters most, not just your recency bias.
Easy money.
In this case, I made 100% of my short putts. I didn't make a bunch of mid-range putts, but I also didn't 3-putt. You can see the area I needed to work on is long putts, highlighted here in gray, and it's due to 3-putting. I 3-putted 50% of the time from over 30 feet. In fact, it was probably worse than that. I putted the ball off the green on 15, or that would have been a 4-putt. That's why that particular shot also made the coachable moments in the round report. It shows me that I putted it off the green and took 3 putts. By talking to coach, we can log what went wrong on that first putt, so we'll know what to work on later. You can keep diving in with some traditional stats. For the most part, I like to stick to strokes gained, but one thing I like to look at, I only had 26 putts. If you just use that number, you'd think I had a great putting day, but the number of putts doesn't really tell the story. Another thing to note, most of your putts are typically tap-ins. So if you have 36 putts and 18 are a tap-in, you really only had 18 putts that are worth looking at. Unless you're missing tap-ins. I like to turn on putt details in the Tangent app, which gives me some additional analysis of my green reading. And this was a bit of an outlier day for me. I struggled with pace and was over-reading the green. That's rare as I'm usually short and low. Speed control was not great. Lastly, let's look at driving performance. I'm usually pretty comparable to an elite amateur when driving, so losing 1.1 strokes is worth diving into. Tangent breaks it down and shows me the main issue was again, mistakes. Driving into trouble. I hit 2 tee shots into recovery situations on number 1 and number 5. Both shots required me to navigate some significant tree trouble. Otherwise, distance was okay. I didn't drive it as far as I normally do, with a median drive of just 264 yards, but still comparable to my target of 267 for an elite am. Direction-wise, I was biased to the left. That's something to keep an eye on as it was costing me strokes. A little quick maybe, or not quite getting to the top of my backswing with my back being a little tight. Back to those excuses. Even playing the tips, I covered 62% of the hole with tee shots, which means I'm long enough to be playing these tees. That's good to know. But looking at the round report, it's not all bad. I also hit some great shots. Under best shots in the round report, the bomb from off the green on number 5 was awesome. I stole birdie there and I gained 1.4 shots on a tour pro. The recovery shot on number 1 was also solid. I was blind over some trees and I hit it on the green that made it a lot easier to save par and ease into my round. And on number 10, I hit a 45-yard wedge to 3 feet to save par after a wayward layup. This gained me over a half a stroke on a tour pro. I did a lot of things well, but it's always the mistakes that are scorecard killers. So let's dive into one of the biggest mistakes and analyze what I could have done different. We'll rewind all the way to the 15th hole. I'm standing in the middle of the fairway with a chance to hit this par 5 and 2. I've struggled with wood so far, and it's not the biggest green. I likely should have laid up, but it's about a 50-50 proposition. I can hit this shot. I just picked a bad time for a bad one. I blocked the shot, but from there, I get really unlucky. That ball could have ended up anywhere where I could have had a relatively easy pitch out. It ended up in this pile of brush. After several minutes of trying to figure out how to even get a club on it, which included debating a left-handed shot, I decided to just power through the brush. Here's a key tip to remember for next time. If there's not an obvious answer for getting the ball out of a jam, you should probably be taking it unplayable. Take a drop. I didn't, and to be honest, it wasn't bad contact. If it misses the 6-inch curb, it's going to be up by the green. But it doesn't, and it goes back into the woods. Now from here, the analysis is pretty easy. It's not so much ball striking mistakes as it's mental. I took too long analyzing and clearing brush for the previous shot. The group behind us caught up, and I started rushing through everything to not be in the way. A mediocre pitch out of the trees, followed by a really poor chip onto the green that actually rolled further from the hole, and then I putted it off the green. I made a mess of it from there to add up to a 9, just trying to go too fast. But if you rewind to the shot from the brush, if I take it unplayable, the worst I'm going to make is bogey. I would have saved 3 strokes. And if you rewind further up the fairway, and I lay up like Caddy told me to do, I'm making par at worst. I probably would have saved 4 shots. But that's golf. We all think we're the hero at times. We've seen too many Tiger, Phil, and Jordan shots to tell ourselves no. But sometimes that's the play. Plenty to learn from as we head into our first tournament of this series, and tournament golf is always harder. The mind plays games. So let's see how I do next time on The Good Miss.